Hey, how's it going? Hopefully you've joined for this webinar. This week we've got a very special guest in Phil Quirk that's joined us. We're going to let him introduce himself in a minute. We're going to do our usual routine. We're going to start off with some a bit of camp news, let people come on, let the viewers get on and so they can get settled down and start asking questions. And then we're going to go into a couple of questions that we've got for Phil, all about mindset and all that kind of stuff. Some questions that were posed. Jesus, look how purple my ears are. But I've got some questions that was posed on the Facebook group over the last week, and then we've also got our usual webinar thread that's up and running there. So if you've got questions during this webinar, you can whack the questions on there. If it's fitness, nutrition based, then Lorne and myself will answer, and if it's mindset, motivation, determination type stuff, then Phil is going to answer that. So basically, we're going to push on for. We're going to aim for half an hour. If we go slightly over, then that's fine. We're going to keep it quite short because Phil's had a really, really long day, and I know he gets tired about this time of day and starts throwing his day out. So so we need to keep it quite short for him. This really is your opportunity to get some of the best mindset coaching in the comfort of your own living room, really. So, Phil, can you kick off with a bit of an introduction for yourself, or do you want me to big you up a bit, or what?
No, I'll start myself.
Fair enough.
So I'm a performance coach, and I work with many different backgrounds of people. So I work with some athletes, some Olympic athletes, some top teams from various sports. But I also work with businessmen. I've worked with polar explorers. I've coached. I coach at a place called Battleback, which is based at Lilleshall, which is where my business is based as well, at the National Sports Centre, and that works with people that are wounded, injured, and sick from the services. So I get subcontracted in via university to work with them, and it's just coaching, really, just getting them into a better place. The majority of my work now is teaching other people what I do, though. So I run courses. People come and they learn about some of the techniques I use, and then they go on and use it for themselves, which Craig's been on. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Completely changed, revolutionised my life, and continues to do so. And actually, I'm calling Team Bootcamp now Team Bootcamp Revamped, because that's exactly what it is. It's a different camp. If you've not been here in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, you have not been to Team Bootcamp as it stands right now. There are some phenomenal things with the introduction of Lorne, with the way that he's shaping training and the stuff that's going on with the fitness side of things and the nutrition as well, and the instruction, but also the mindset stuff that we're doing. A different place, phenomenal place, really positive. So that leads us on nicely to a little bit of camp news, Lorne. So I've got a couple of bits, but
I've not been here for the last 3 days, so I've been on a course that I'll get to. But tell us what's been on the last 3 days, Craig.
last few days. Basically, we've had a couple of people leave. We've had Big Mike leave, who he shared a really personal sort of testimonial on the virtual camp page about 2 weeks ago now. He's done phenomenally well. I'm sure he won't mind me sharing his progress that he's made. He basically came with a target of losing 30 pounds in 3 weeks. 10 pounds a week, it's a big ask. He left having lost 36 pounds, which is phenomenal, and had an extra day's training today. But I believe that his true progress, his true results or whatever, is up here. I think he's going to go away and going to really, really take stock of what's going on in his life, what's led him to where he is right now, and going to make some phenomenal changes. So he's a real massive character on camp. So it'd be sad to go, but we've got CJ leaving pretty soon again, who's made some great progress. I've seen things in CJ over the last couple of days that is just, she's starting to change. Her idea, her model of the world and everything is really starting to change, which is great. And she's done a few things with Phil today that again, I believe is going to be phenomenal in her life. What else has happened? We've got some of Phil's training colleagues really here at camp right now. So it's a great place to be this week, because there's 8 NLP master practitioner trainers in the building, really, just dotting around doing lots and lots of profound exercises to get people to be better, to live happier, and to perform at their optimum, really, which is really good. Might chat about that in a bit, Phil. If we've got time to do that. And then obviously Lorne's been AWOL. Lorne's been gone for a couple of days, but we've managed to keep it together. I think Camp's ticked over a little.
I was worried.
Yeah, I'm sure he was, mate.
Yeah, no, I've been in London for the last 3 days. I've been on a course that firstly taught me how to do a 12-point skin and fold caliper measurement test. So we now have the ability here at Team to measure your body fat. And secondly, gave me a lot more knowledge into your endocrine profile and how that can affect how you store your body fat, and then things we can do, the ways we can train to help you lose weight quicker and more effectively. Yeah,
and it's really taking the guesswork out of stuff, isn't it? It's like, every other camp, and even us at the early stages, it was a case of, look, let's just train them hard, and and let's get them to eat differently, and we're going to get weight loss from that. But this is taking that guesswork out and really stacking the results in your favour, and training so much smarter than any other sort of camp like this in the country.
Yeah.
What were the big? I know you've not had a great deal of time to reflect on stuff, but what were the big sort of hitters that come out of that?
The big ones were how cortisol can affect you, how inflammation can affect you, and how insulin resistance can affect you. So 3 big hitters. We spent a lot of time on each. There's a lot of research I need to go away and do and absorb it and do all the things you do after a course. But those are the big 3. And I feel very happy with what I can implement now at camp.
Yeah, and the 12-point caliper test then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how accurate is that compared to other methods of monitoring body fat on the market?
Well, ideally, we'd buy a bod pod at about 250 grand, but only universities and such have the capability to do that. So in terms of accuracy, it's good. It all depends on the practitioner, but I'm good. So
yeah,
it's a winner.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, you might have seen some of these bioimpedance stuff where you hold on to 2 bloody things and it sends a charge to your body. Ultimately, that electricity wants to go the path of least resistance. If you do the upper body, it'll send a charge around you. Upper body, it's just not very accurate. If you stand on one.
Yeah, they're not very accurate. This one is, and I'm happy that we can now implement it.
Yeah, cool. So if you come in, if you're lined up to come to camp for the next few weeks, then this is what's going to come up. We're really trying to look at other ways to monitor progress and to gauge results other than just stepping on the scales, because weight just fluctuates so much in a person on a day-to-day basis, on a week-by-week basis, different cycles throughout the month, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, this is the second step really. We've introduced a glucose. We're also going to introduce some HRV training where we can monitor campers' heart rate and how their body's responding to the training and what rest therefore they need to have. So really separating us, as we already are, different from everyone else, which is going to make us leaps and bounds ahead.
Phenomenal. Okay, so I think that's pretty much camp news.
Adam's still here.
Adam's who?
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam's still here. I saw something really profound with Adam today. I'm going to try and get a testimonial from him about that later on and talk about his progress. He's a very private person. If he's watching this, and he starts sharing his story a little bit, because I know it can help other people. If you didn't catch the podcast that I recorded over the last couple of days with Adam and James, you really need to listen to that. There's some great feedback. People saying it's really motivating. They've really resonated what they have to say. And, especially if you're sort of thinking, is it me? I'm struggling to lose weight. I'm always, no matter what I try, things go wrong. It'll give you some serious light at the end of the tunnel. So listen to that podcast. It's a good one. I listened to that one and then end up going back and listening to every other podcast that we've ever done. So brilliant. Okay, so we're going to go on to the main event with Phil. So I've got a question really, just to allow people time, if you've got questions, to stick it on that little webinar thread that we've got in the virtual bootcamp group, or on the event page. Lorne's sort of busy just having a look at that as always, just to see what's coming in. But my question, Phil, and obviously I know some of the caliber of the people that you've worked with in the past, and I just wondered, who have you seen, or what have you seen where people have been stuck in such a rut that they seem to struggle to get going or keep going, or or whatever, they're caught in some rut, and then they make a change and then go on to do really, really well. You know, what factors have you seen in people when you've seen that happen?
There's a few that spring to mind straight away. So from a sporting background, and also just coaching, everyday people in life scenarios. I worked with a guy once who was who was really bad self-harm, and he had a lot of trauma. He was in a real sort of dark place. He had real big arms. Like he was kickboxing. He had tattoos, not too dissimilar to that. It was sort of full sleeve tattoos, but the tattoos were just completely gorged with his scars. It was almost like it was an incredibly bad way. And I did some coaching with him as well as some other coaches. And what I often when I work with people, people perceive that they're not going to be able to change. You say, like you just saying there, you were just alluding to the fact of, I can't lose weight, or I can't get the results I'm after, and they get entrenched in a mindset. They really get deeply entrenched into a way of thinking, and what happens is that becomes your state of mind. That becomes your reality. You have authored your own reality in some respects, and you've ended up in this trench. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the longer you go into it, the further and deeper down you go. And the presumption is the further down you go, the longer it takes to come back up. But actually, it doesn't sometimes. You can lift out of it pretty quick, but it does take a change of focus. And one of the things we look at is RAS, and I don't know if we've chatted about RAS. So there's a part of your brain called your RAS, reticular activating system. It's your Google search engine for your brain. All of your senses that come in to your brain goes into your RAS to then be sorted out and sent around the brain for you to do stuff. Whatever you put in that RAS, same as, for instance, if you take Google, so take a Google search engine, and we'll call that our RAS. And then if you put into Google, life is shit, then what you'll get in Google is all of the evidence that life is shit. And what you find with people that get into that mindset is the RAS is full of these kind of statements. So the RAS is full of, it never works for me, and I can never get the results I want. This always happens to me. It'll never go right, and all of these statements that go into your RAS. Now what happens is your brain starts to look for patterns that support that way of thinking. And that's the way your brain works. It's the same theory of when you decide to buy a BMW or whatever car, Mercedes or Skoda, whatever car you're going to buy. Once you've made that decision to buy it, suddenly you go out and then you just see these cars everywhere. You start to notice them. Now the cars have always been there, but once you start to notice them, it becomes a pattern, and then your brain is looking for them. It's almost picking up on any car that fits that pattern. And that's the same for mindset. Now with this guy, he had a long journey to get back to sort of any kind of normality of life. But the change was just focusing on that RAS. And that can be as simple as positive affirmations in the morning, just standing in front of the mirror and saying to yourself, this is going to be a great day. I'm glad about it. I'm glad that I've got a family. I'm happy that I've got my health the way I'm in. I can always move forward. So that kind of mindset when you wake up in the morning then starts to set you up for the day, as opposed to waking up, first thing that comes in your head is, this day is going to be the same as every other day, which is shit. And that's what your RAS will have, and it'll look for all the evidence to support that statement. Sometimes it's cliched, because I know that people, they want it to be difficult, because it's such a deep hole that people can get into, and whether it's with their weight and food, or whether it's with depression, whether it's with confidence, whatever the situation, it can get really deep really quickly, but you can come out of it really quickly as well. But it takes just mindset.
Let me just sort of pull out a couple of things there that really sort of struck me, just to make it think. And if you're interested in learning more about the RAS, we could have a RAS specific webinar or podcast or something later on. Phil's around for a few days, and we could do more of this RAS. So all I need is like a hashtag RAS, RAS, hashtag RAS, and then if we get a few of them, then I'll we'll put this together. But basically, like the analogy that Phil just used there, whatever you put in your search bar in your RAS, that's the evidence that you're going to get back. So if you're there going, I can't lose weight, the mind is going to throw up and find and identify lots of different bits of evidence to prove that. Now, it works the other way though. If you're saying, you know, I am losing weight, you know, if you're telling yourself I'm losing weight now, it will find all the little bits of evidence to prove that. You know, you'll find that, oh, bloody, my waist is getting thin. People are starting to say it to me. You know, my clothes are getting looser. I seem to be eating less. I'm making smarter food choices, and all these things really do think there. You know, and it's a real shitty thing. It does sound cliche, but it's 100% true. 100% true.
I think what ties alongside that is language as well. And I'll give you an example today with one of the campers. I won't mention your name, but she said I'm addicted to carbs. And what we explored was actually she's been here now for sort of 6 weeks, and she hasn't eaten any carbs in 6 weeks. So you know, you can be clean of any drug for a certain amount of time, and you're free of any kind of chemical link or addiction. But there's a linguistic addiction that she's still got. She still verbalizes that she's addicted to carbs, and when the evidence would say, just on the results that she's experiencing herself, that she's 6 weeks without carbs.
Yeah, sorry if you missed out on that. If we're back in now, just stick as a number one in the thread. Obviously, just dropped out again there, but I think we've recovered. I think we're back in there. We've got all our viewers in there. Yeah, Phil. So you was basically where was you with that?
So I was sort of explaining how language correlates so closely to your RAS. So chatting with one of the girls today, and as I say, 6 weeks without eating carbs. She's been on a paleo diet, losing weight, feeling healthy, feeling better. You know, I've seen her 6 weeks ago, and I've seen it like she is now. She looks very much more healthy. She looks happier in every respect. You would say has gone on an upward curve, but it still chooses to verbalize the language that I'm addicted to carbs.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say that to yourself, then that's going to go in your RAS, and then you're going to generate all the pictures. And that's why the psychological addiction is so much harder to ever break than the chemical addiction. Because you keep saying it over and over.
Yeah, I love that idea. That what you just said there. It's the first time I've ever heard you say that. Is like, you know, you can break the chemical addiction, but what she's actually got there, and is a language addiction. She's addicted to saying that thing. That's the habit. You know what I mean? That she's got, and I think we've all have had in the past or are carrying now these little addictions to certain languages. I can't do this, I can't do that, you know. And it's interesting to think that just a slight change in language, putting something different in your RAS, in your own personal Google search bar, can have such a profound effect. Because that was what this question was about. You know, what are the big things that Phil has seen the largest changes from, the biggest transformations? So
I think that's what you get, an immediate shift for people. It's almost like the metaphor that you just take a 1 degree change on a compass, but then if you walk for 5 or 10 meters, it's no difference whatsoever. But if you walk for a kilometer on a 1 degree change, and then the different path you're on is profound, and almost that RAS is that 1 degree that you can affect straight away. And you can test it yourself. So anyone that's listening to this, you can test your RAS. So you can try and put positive things into your RAS, or I'll take away the word try there. You can put positive things in your RAS. You can wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror, look straight in the mirror, in the eyes, and go, "This is going to be a great day. I feel really positive about it. I feel as though I'm going to really take this day by the scruff of the neck and seize that opportunity." And then notice how that makes you feel straight away, and then the follow on from that into breakfast. just by changing one little thing, just that 1 degree.
Yeah, I mean, something. What I do every morning is I've got 3 big targets that I'm working towards now. I'm not going to share one with you because this is just in the proper forum for it. But one of them is, you know, I always want a better relationship with Paula, and then the next one is I really want like a new van. I used to have like a camper van, and I want a new van, a T5. So every morning, and then something else, and basically every morning when I'm in the shower, and I always brush my teeth in the shower and all this, and as I'm stood there brushing my teeth in the shower, and the shower condenses up, I write a big heart, P, as in love, P, love Paula, and T5 in the condensation. And I do that every time I have a shower, you know, and it's just like a little slight twist on an affirmation. And you know, if you're constantly doing stuff like that, then your subconscious mind is going to get drawn into what your conscious mind is doing. And you know, you could have your target weight, you could have, you know, anything. If you was looking for a PR lift or whatever, you know, you could have your figures on there. Write it down, stick it on a post-it note, you know what I mean? Put it where you're going to notice it and see it, and start looking for these positives. Huge benefit for everybody. So, good. Any others, Phil? Or
no?
Brilliant.
Well, I can if you want.
No, just what's happening, Lorne? There seems to be a bit of activity there, is there?
Yeah. We've got a question from Dawn. So Dawn has said, okay, here goes. I'm 50, female, 5'7", 11 stone, 12 pounds. She's just been told today that if she doesn't get her figure to drop down from 44, I'm going to have to be treated for diabetes. She says she eats really clean, however, she binges on chocolate, etc. I used to drink like this, go for weeks, months without, but then I would binge. Knocked the booze on the head over a year ago, but it looks like I've now replaced the sugar with binges. I'm in a rut now, but really need to get a grip on the binges and start training.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot. There's a few different facets to this question, Dawn. I think first of all, you know, I've learned from Phil, and maybe Phil can talk about this. You know, it's like you know, what of the what, you know what I mean, and trying to work back. This is what you're faced with right now, but what's the cause of that, and what's the cause of that, and that. Work it back to work out what the root problem is, and then that will cascade down. So then that's something that you can't really do without any kind of coaching. What I will say, Dawn, though, pick up the frickin' phone tomorrow. I will put the phone under Phil's nose and make him speak to you, okay, if you're serious about this, okay? So that's a little promise to you. With regards to the food, I mean, yeah, the whole of January, Lorne and I sort of dedicated towards trying to get, you know, sugar-free, and that's worked quite well. We're pushing on for the rest of the year. I've slipped a couple of times. I've had a couple of little slips, which I think is perfectly normal, to be honest. Lorne, I don't know how you're getting on with your sugar-free thing.
Still going strong.
Yeah, still bastard.
Yeah. No, but it's not easy, I'll tell you that.
No, and it's not easy. And this is the point I was going to say, that you really need to be sort of 100% breaking away from the sugar, all forms of hidden sugar and all that kind of stuff. There's a real interesting book that I would suggest you get on called The Sugar Impact Diet. And what it'll do is, if you're struggling to get started now, quite often we struggle because we're trying to do too much all at once. We get overwhelmed. And so what this book does, it's got a little process in there where it'll get you over a 3-week period to cut out certain foods 1 week, and then you move on to the next stage. You cut out the next lot of foods the next week, and then you cut out the next lot of foods the next week. And then basically retest yourself, and then you take it from there. And it's written by a woman called JJ Virgin. So that's The Sugar Impact Diet by JJ Virgin. And I really would recommend that, because it comes from a female. So she's talking about things such as polycystic ovaries, you know, the perimenopause and all this kind of stuff. So it's really sort of highly relevant. And I believe it was said, when I first read that book, I sent that book out to every female in my sphere of influence, really. I think it's quite good little book. It comes at it from a different angle. Lots of people could be like, just cut out sugar, don't cut anymore. Now, if you're struggling to get out of a rut, I suspect it might be a bit, I don't know, your lads think, there's a bit of overwhelm there, trying to do too much. That might give you a little system of just sort of squeezing into it, you know, and taking it from there. So, any other points from you, lads?
Yeah, obviously I know you're listening, Dawn. Just, can you tell me how much sleep you're getting at the moment? for the last 7 days per night, what sleep did you get on average? And then put the message in, and we'll go from there. That's all I want to ask at present.
Yeah.
So Greg's the question, Craig. He says, personally, I don't have any direct questions, as the whole mindset aspect is all new to me. Very interested to know, it sounds like a direct question. So, very interested to know if there are any key ways to keep your mind on track if you feel you're starting to go astray, Phil. Do you focus on the end goal, or do you go back to the basics?
Question is, Greg, how are you motivated is more important. So we tend to perceive that everyone is motivated the same way we are, and we tend to accept that as a truism of life, but really it isn't true. And the best way I can describe this is, imagine a spectrum. At one end of the spectrum you've got a carrot, and on the other end of the spectrum you've got effectively the stick. Now some people are what we would call as motivated by towards. So they set themselves a goal, and then the closer they get to that goal, it's almost like the tractor beam gets stronger and stronger. Their motivation starts to increase, and they get more and more motivated to achieve the goal that they want. And if that's how you're motivated, you probably presume that everyone else is the same. But that isn't the way, because a lot of people are motivated with what's called away from. So they're motivated more by the stick. So when they've had a bad result, and when something's gone wrong at work, so they've fallen off the back of the wagon. They've fallen off the wagon when they're on some sort of project, a diet, and then they've slipped off. Straight after that, when they're feeling at the lowest, is when they're most motivated, and they will be ultra motivated for a period of time. Now, the only problem with that is as they move away from that event and they get towards perhaps their goal they've got set in the future, the motivation starts to decrease. And you see a lot with athletes, they start to get disinterested, and the motivation actually decreases. And you can see it in people's language. For instance, someone might say, I love winning, and another person might say, I hate losing. Now, the thing that they're saying is actually the same if you look at it, but the words are very different. What they mean is the same. They both like winning, but one is proclaiming to be a towards motivation, I love winning, and one's an away from, I hate the feeling of losing, so I'll do anything to avoid that. And it can cross over to finances. I want to be rich, I don't want to be poor. It's the same thing again, but it's a different way of looking at it. So the question you need to be asking yourself is, how are you motivated? Do you find that you get stronger and stronger as the goal comes closer, or do you find that you're most motivated early on, and then that kind of starts to decrease and drop off? And if that's the case, you need to give yourself ways of recuperating that motivation periodically, whether or not it's reminding yourself the consequences of what would happen if you were to start eating sugar again, or something like that.
Well, we'll talk. I think we've got two examples there, haven't we? Do you know what you are? Yeah. You're away from or towards? Oh, yeah. Can you give an example of that?
Well, yeah, the MDS coming up, the Marathon Disables, as that's getting closer and closer, the pressure's on, and and I need to be, I'm getting more and more motivated. Hit sort of Christmas, and grab the old bloody sugar-free thing by the horns, and away we went. So yeah, and lots of different stuff. I find that, and I was going to come on to this actually. I know Dawn's mentioned about motivation and that in one of her early questions, but quite often I think that you find someone who's towards motivated like me, and therefore if they don't have a threshold, if they don't have a line in the sand, what are they actually moving towards? No wonder there's no motivation, because you're not actually aiming towards anything. So if you know that you're towards motivated, then put things, put some little lines in the sand. Get yourself registered for an event. Get yourself the boot camp in the park, or or something like that, where it's coming up, and as it's coming up, you're going to get more and more motivated. You're going to get more and more motivated. For an exact time scale, that's going to be different for different people, but 6 weeks is a good indication. You know what I mean? If you've got some kind of event every 6 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks, depending on what your lifestyle is like, then that'd be a great place to be.
So I'm very much away from.
Yeah.
It's the fear of failure that drives me. Really interesting.
Yeah. And what I've found though is that people presume that everyone else is the same. And that's why coaches, I think, sometimes have problems with their athletes, because they motivate their athlete the way they want to be motivated. We call it coaching in the mirror. They're kind of talking to their athlete, but it's how they would like to be talked to. And for some, it doesn't resonate. You know, if you've got someone that's away from the fear of losing, and you're telling them about, you know, the event's coming up now, 6 weeks. Imagine what it's going to feel like to win. It's going to be fantastic for you. It's music to ears. But what you want to be doing is saying to Lorne, remember how bad it was the last time it went wrong. You know, that feeling that you had when it was, you know.
That's what I do to myself internally a lot.
Interesting. So the question you should ask yourself, perhaps, Greg, is how are you motivated? And when you know the answer to that, you'll be able to motivate yourself.
Well, we'll be able to work it out, won't we, Greg? Because I don't know if we should release this, but I know we might be meeting pretty soon. So I've got a bit of a catch-all resource for this. A book that I read recently called 59 Seconds to Motivation, or something along those lines anyway. And basically they look at all the motivational trends, and then, you know, and then they have created like a catch-all process for getting motivation in 59 seconds. So it's quite a good little book. I listened to it, an audio book. Doesn't take very long to read. Quite interesting. It'll change your thoughts on the way that some people try to motivate themselves. I'll keep it for another book, but it's there if you want something else.
So Dawn said there can't be more of a reason than for health. Feel like I'm at last chance saloon. Maybe this is what I've needed to kick my sorry ass. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I don't think there's a bigger reason than for health. You know, this is the problem when it comes to health and lifestyle choices. Is I've said this before to talks I've given on camp. As human beings, we react instantly to our environment. We like working off instant cues, i.e., if I touch that, it's hot, I'm not going to touch it again. Someone punches me in the face, they go to do it again, I'm going to move out of the way. Anything lifestyle and fitness related isn't instant. It's by far instant. You're talking 10, 15, 20 years of what can be termed abuse before you do start seeing results. So, you know, we'd have gone and told a 20-year-old Dawn that this is the effect you're going to have, you know, when you get to your age you are now. You probably wouldn't have cared, and not many people do today. It's one of those things that, you know, there's bigger priorities on the horizon at that time. So, yeah, your health's massively important, and if that doesn't motivate you, like you said, I don't know what will. So
I've got a question for Dawn. Obviously, I listened to Dawn's question and kind of get the impression. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dawn, but you kind of replaced one addiction with another. I think it's
alcohol to sugar.
Alcohol, sugar, and we actually chatted about this at boot camp yesterday. Yesterday we had a chat about addiction, and it's a fascinating subject. Addiction. I'm not an expert in addiction. I don't proclaim to be, but I have seen a lot of studies now that suggest that the addiction is very rarely to the actual substance or chemical. You know, the alcohol, the drug. Although there is a chemical addiction with, say, something like heroin. Now, what they find is, you know, someone can be an alcoholic and then be free of drink for 365 years, and then, you know, celebrate 1 year clean, 365 days, depending on 365 years. So 365 days, and then they celebrate a year clean, and then they find the next day, you know, back on the source and off the wagon. Because there's something missing, and they've done some fascinating experiments with rats, which you can check out, where they have rats that live in a cage which has got no features in it. It's just a metal sort of featureless sort of tin walled environment, and they have two water bottles. One is laced with cocaine, and one is cocaine and water, and one's just water. Now, what happens is the rats become hopelessly addicted to the cocaine, which you can probably understand. You know, they try both waters, they find that one gives them a stimulant, and they drink that. But what's interesting is when they put the rats into a different cage, a fresh set of rats with the same sort of same batch, but this time they have like an Alton Towers for rats. You know, there's loads for them to do, wheels they can play, loads of colour, loads of stuff they can climb up and down. I wasn't thinking about Alton Towers for rats. Yeah. But what happens is they don't get addicted to the cocaine. Even when they try it, they just leave it. So often what's seen is people replace one addiction with another. So someone has a problem with alcohol, he kind of sort that out, and then you replace that with food, and then they sort that out, and you might even replace it with exercise, and then become addicted. But it's not underlying it's not addressing the underlying problem. And my question to you is is there something that you think causes that need to have certain drives and addictions, perhaps?
Good question.
Yeah, great question. We didn't say you were addicted to alcohol, by the way.
No. I'm using that as an example. Sorry. Yeah.
Quality. Any more questions there, obviously? Or,
no, not yet.
Yeah, there's Annalisa. So just asked one for you, really. You know, is a sumo deadlift comparable to, or just as good for building strength as a standard deadlift?
Yeah, the simple answer is the question you asked is it a compound movement, and is it a simple answer is yes. I just asked why you were doing that. It's quite technical, as is a conventional deadlift. I just want to know why you're doing it before I delve further into that.
And I'll just comment on what's not been said, or what's not been communicated there is, I take great solace knowing that someone is asking about sumo deadlifts instead of bicep curls or tricep extensions or something like that, because if you're asking about something like that, a variation of a deadlift or variations of compound exercises, you are on exactly the right track, in my opinion. You know, you're butting the trend in the fitness industry. You're doing the exercises that count. You're doing the exercises that are going to give you the most benefit, in the shortest amount of time and all that kind of stuff. So good effort asking those kind of questions.
Yeah, it's a great lift to do. I would like to know your motivation for it, and then we can talk about it further.
Yeah, cool. What else we got? So I think that's it. You got any questions? You
got that question from Kathy?
Kathy, yeah. Okay, so we've got one here.
About challenges.
Kathy basically said you have a goal. You're pretty determined. Nothing will stop you. How do you? And then over the next 6 weeks in, you realise that it's either unachievable or unrealistic. How do you readjust without beating yourself up? How do you readjust to an achievable goal without beating yourself up?
I started answering this question on the Facebook page, and then I said I would go into a little bit more detail during the webinar, which obviously right now. The interesting thing is have a look at your own language there, Kathy, because you say you have a goal, you're really motivated, and what you're using is lots of yous and yours, and then I think you beat yourself up. And there's a displacement of the language there where you're moving it away from yourself instead of saying I have a goal, I feel really motivated, and then it's almost taking that responsibility. It's only a subtle thing, but language can be really curious, and it's only when you notice something that you think, oh, I wonder why I said that. Now the key thing for me is, who are you comparing yourself to, and what is the comparison that you've made for it to be unrealistic? And then because what I see a lot, and it doesn't just happen with everyday people in all walks of life, it happens with professional athletes. They make comparisons outside of themselves. They compare them. We as humans are really bad for comparing ourselves to other people, not helped by the media, not helped by fashion magazines, not helped by society. We're encouraged to consistently compare ourselves against other people. I once worked with a footballer who was a really good footballer, kind of like first division, and he was really unhappy with his penalty and free kick taking, and it was only when I asked him who was he comparing himself against, and he said it was Cristiano Ronaldo. Now I think it's good to emulate and model off people that are really good, but I think sometimes if you're comparing yourself and you hope to have the same results and you don't get those results, you kind of set yourself up for a little bit of disappointment and failure. So my question would be, who are you comparing yourself to? Because you can only ever be the best version of you, and that can change every single day. You can reinvent yourself every single day to be a better version, and that's a wonderful way of looking at goals, because you go to bed one night and you've done loads of things that day that have moved you in a positive direction, and then you wake up the next morning, and by definition of what you've done the day before, you've reinvented yourself as a better version of you, and you keep doing that process over and over again. And if you do that by the law of marginal gains over time, you will just go in the right direction. So that may be a question you can send back to us, what the comparison was
Yeah, I've got something that we teach at camp as well, and it's what we call horizon thinking. So I've just done a little diagram there, basically just to sort of explain this diagram. Here's you, I'm doing everything back to front. Here's you, okay, wherever you are, it doesn't really matter. You set your goal, and we usually set our goals on what we class as the ideal. All right, so sorry, Phil, for blowing out your face there. So we sort of set our goals, which becomes the ideal. What I will say about the ideal is, quite often we measure our ideal on things that are actually, like Phil said, way off the mark, you know. And I know people that are like, oh, it's not, if I was just as, you know, if I looked just as good as Binky, then I'd be doing all right. Now, Binky, I know, because I was there on one of her photo shoots, they're massively airbrushed her pictures for one of the magazines. So if you're measuring yourself against that, unless you've got a team of bloody photographers and airbrushers and all that kind of stuff, you're off the mark straight away. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, what people tend to do is they measure their progress against the ideal. Now, what that does, it puts them in what we call the gap. So this is the gap here. Okay, now in the gap, you know, it's really hard to see how much progress you're making. It's like looking at the horizon and trying to get to the horizon. And every time you try and get that little bit closer, the horizon seems to get further and further away. Okay, so what we try and get you to do is go here and you measure your have your goal over here, but then measure your progress on how far you've come. All right, and I feel that there, it takes you out the gap. The gap is this is the kind of thing where you get demotivated, you start to reevaluate your goals. You know, you can have massive goals, hubs they call them in NLP, huge, unbelievably great goals, right? You know, you can have them, all right? Now, but if you constantly measure yourself against that, you're going to be in this gap constantly. So look at your progress that you've made. And I've been wondering, you know, the lads have asked a couple of questions there as well, Kathy, but one of my questions is what progress have you seen, you know, and when you're sort of saying that these goals might be unrealistic? Because at the end of the day, if you've made progress, if you're a little bit better, are you losing or are you winning, you know? So, you know, that was a little question, question for you as well.
Okay, Greg's asked, he actually put this before, as professionals, do we have bad days, and if we do, what do we do about them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll launch straight into this. I have bad days. I have less bad days than good days, but there was a time when I was having lots and lots of bad days. There really was, you know, a few years ago, and it took a lot of effort to hold my ass out of there. It started with commitment and hold my ass out of there. What I do now, Greg, is, you know, I expect bad days. When I have a bad day, I allow myself to sit with that bad day, you know, and just let the process of having a bad day run its course. I don't try and beat myself up about it, but I surround myself with people too sat here that, you know, that leave me charged at the end of the day. You know, I try and eradicate people that drain me, that are no good for me, that taught me out of trying to do things that I know I want to do. They rid me of my positivity and all that kind of stuff, and surround myself with people that are positive, that are good for me, that help me move forward. And that's basically it, really. And it usually takes up a bit of a phone. Well, I don't really do phone calls, but, you know, a bit of a message to Phil or whatever, you know, coming in the morning, have a bit of breakfast and chat with Lorne, and you know, and I'm back on my feet again. But I don't put any time pressure on myself. So
the first thing I say, I don't know if you enjoy reading or not, Greg, but there's a book by a guy called Viktor Frankl, which is Man's Meaningful Life, or Man's Search for Meaning, and it's a fantastic book. And he's a Jewish psychologist that basically was sent to Auschwitz, him and his wife, and he developed, while he was there, a theory of sort of psychotherapy called logotherapy. Now, the reason why the book's fantastic is because what he realized when he was in Auschwitz and when he was in the concentration camps was, no matter how bad it got for him, he could always choose how he felt. He wouldn't let the Germans take that off him. So no matter what they did, he would always choose the way he felt. And the reason why I mention it is because when I'm having a bad day, I kind of think that, well, I could be in Auschwitz struggling to choose how I'm going to respond to the situation. And when you measure it like that, you're like, well, suddenly I'm in whatever situation I'm in, But it's a really good book to read. And then the second thing I would say is, I too have bad days like Craigo. I think everyone has bad days. It's how you respond to those bad days. It's the key. Life is 10% what happens to you. It's 90% how you respond to that 10%. So once you start to learn to respond in the right way, you can switch things around. It's only a bad day if you let it go the whole day. You could just have a bad 20 minutes in the morning if you want, and then turn that around. Now, a great example of that, if you wanted a live example, is what was the name of the lad that was terminally ill that raised all the money for cancer? Stephen.
I know you mean. I can't remember.
So the young lad a couple of years ago that really captured the imagination of the country, and he was diagnosed terminally ill. So he was having a really bad day, but he chose to change that around. He chose, instead of, nobody would have thought anything less of him if he thought, well, I'll just slip away quietly into the night and live out my last 3 or 4 months or however long, just chilling out. He decided he would go and raise, millions and millions and millions of pounds. And not only did he then inspire, unbelievable amount of people to get on board with his way of thinking. It showed everyone that actually, you can choose your response. So you can have a really bad day, the worst day of all, and you can choose to respond in the most profound way. So there is always a choice there, Greg, and that's the key. There is always a choice, and I think both Viktor Frankl's book and the example of the young lad that raised all that money, it shows you that choice does exist.
Yeah, I kind of do a bit of an amalgamation of both. For me, firstly, to define a bad day for me is when I don't achieve something. I could have had quite a nice day, sat on the sofa doing nothing, but for me that's a bad day for where I am in my life and what I'm trying to do. So if it's looking like a bad day is happening where I'm not going to get what I want done, or I have to change my plans, I do a couple of things. Firstly, I think about what I'm happy about and what I have in my life, which basically I think about what is most important to me. Then secondly, what I think is quite key is I'll just do something. I look for a quick win, wherever that might be. And as stupid as that sounds, that could be unpacking a bag that needed to be unpacked. That could be doing the hoovering that needed to be done. Just a small little win to say, well, no, I'm taking back the control of this day. And then from then on, you'll be amazed how quickly things can spiral. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I've just wrote out something there, Greg. Here it is. That's your permission slip, mate. You got allowed one duvet day, and really give yourself permission to have a day every now and again. Don't think you can go through life just this bloody happy jolly bloke all the time, because it's really not going to happen. Things happen in life. Some things you really cannot do a great deal about, but give yourself permission to have a bit of a duvet day or whatever it is. Whatever that. I was talking to this about Paula yesterday, and Paula said that one of the accountability groups that she's in say a duvet day is perfectly acceptable, but just make sure it's one day. So don't let that become 2 days and then 3 days and 4 days and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Question from Owen. Firstly, great to see you.
Yeah.
You're right, Owen. He's asked, what are Phil's thoughts on vision boards?
Vision boards. I don't know a great deal about these, but I hear it all the time. So I believe it's when you put out all of your goals on vision boards. I think it's great by the sound of it. I think I work a lot with visualization. A lot of the athletes I work with, specifically, I'll talk about Calder. So Calder's going to Rio next year, Paralympian on the canoe. She's in the para canoe team. And when we first started working with her, she really struggled to visualize. She would close her eyes and really try, but just couldn't really get the visualization. And we had to practice and practice and practice. And now she's at a point now where visualization is second perfect for a run. She without a clock, she can close her eyes and visualize a run. And if you was to start the clock, and then when she opens her eyes to press stop, it would be near enough exactly how long it takes her to do an Olympic run, 51 seconds-ish. So she's developed that, and it's powerful. And there's a reason for that, because when you visualize something, when your brain stores memories and those you see things and then it stores them, and that becomes a memory, and it's temporal and atemporal. But also, when you visualize things over and over again and you store it, really that's stored in the same sort of process as a memory in some respects. So when your brain thinks that it's already got something, then the more you do that, the more your brain thinks, well, actually, this has already happened. It becomes familiar with that as a norm. So I think visualization is incredibly powerful. And without knowing too much about vision boards themselves, I imagine it's a similar thing. You have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I imagine you've got some sort of board, and on there it's got pictures of your goals and things that you want to achieve. So that can only be a good thing. Yeah,
I just handing on. We use vision boards here. I've got my own vision board. In fact, I've got 2 different vision boards. So if you're, I think they're not my sort of primary way of motivating myself for doing so, because I'm very auditory. So no, I'm very. Owen, I don't know if you did the representational systems test when you was here, but you know, whatever you were, whether you're predominantly you like to hear stuff, the world's coming into you, or whether you like to see it and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? You can make it a bit relevant to that. I have a vision board. I don't give it as much attention that I might do if I was visual, because I'm much more auditory. So I have other cues for motivation and stuff like that. But you've got to, get it done. Be there. You know, I have. Don't know where my phone is right now, but you know, little reminders. I'm gonna find it. Fill in, guys. Fill in.
Oh, pressure.
I mean, it's interesting that obviously Craig says it's not as much for him, and I know from working with Craig, he is very auditory preference, both auditory and AD. So that would explain why a vision board doesn't resonate as strongly with Craig. But with someone who is very highly visual, then a vision board would be a fantastic way.
So this is, you know, that's the van that I want by summer. So it's on my home screen on my phone. Paula was absolutely gutted when I took her off, and I was like, "That you're out there, the van for summer." But little things, and I think, you know, there's 2 main parts of your brain: your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. And you know, I know from Phil's teaching that quite often our conscious mind is chasing something, but our subconscious is either lagging behind or going off in a slightly different direction. And only when these 2 minds align and then head in the same direction do you really start making good progress, because you're just doing it without even thinking about it. You know what I mean? You'll go to the shop and it won't even occur to you that, you know, there's chocolate and crap over there, because you eat healthy. You're that person that eats healthy. So I think any little reminder like that, you know, in a prominent place where you can see all this kind of stuff, you know, it's got to help. It's got to help. You know, you really give it a crack.
To link it back though to what we were talking about before about motivation, in a weird way, if I was going to get Lorne to do a vision board, we'd perhaps do a vision board of the things he doesn't want.
Yeah.
That would we've never been fat. I wouldn't have thought that.
Opposite.
But
he's trying to get fat.
But correct me if I'm wrong though, Lorne, you know, seeing those things would really make it Lorne be like, you know.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to say. Firstly, following directly from that, I used to race up to an elite level in triathlon many moons ago, and as part of that, I was at university and we used to swim early mornings. We had to be in the pool for 5 to 5 because of the way the swim squad worked. So that meant getting up about 4:30 and then going to the pool. Now, 9 times out of 10 that would happen, but every now and again I'd be tired, overtrained, whatever it may be, or sometimes I'd just be lazy and I wouldn't get out of bed. And what I used to do is to take my swimming bag and I used to put it in the middle of my room. So for the rest of that day, whenever I walked in my room, all I could see was the bag. It was a constant reminder that I hadn't done what I set out to do that day.
Away from motivation.
Yeah. Secondly, one thing I do, talk about vision boards, I think for those that were here, we worked out, I've not done the test, but I'm pretty confident I'm quite auditory, quite a lot of internal dialogue. What I do when I go to bed is something I actually picked up from reading Johnny Wilkinson's autobiography, which is incredible if you get a chance to read it. And what he does is he plays back the day as if he was in like a Big Brother house, almost as if he watched it on CCTV, and he'll decide whether he was happy with what he did that day. And I do that every time I get into bed. For 10-20 minutes, I was thinking about the day, what I achieved, what I didn't achieve, and I'll tweak from there. So I find that quite a good consolidation process at the end of each night.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, we're going to start wrapping this up now, unless there's any last minute sort of afterburners come flying in. But really, you might be watching this, and just to sort of summarise some of this and just to ground it a little bit, really, you might be watching and going, it's all right for you three, you bloody, that you eat, sleep, shit, breathe, fitness and coaching, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, in some ways we do, but in the same respect, that all these little tips and techniques, they don't take a lot of effort. It just needs to spark up a little bit of effort, and then to take it from there and to do it, to do it regularly. There's a couple of little apps you can do. There's a couple I'm trialing at the minute, and then I'm going to do like a bit of a review. There's one called Routinely. There's another one called the Fail Log. There's another app that I use called Win Streak, where basically every night you just record 3 wins that you've had from that day, and then plan 3 wins from the day after. So I'm sort of playing with all these little apps just to see, and then I'll feed back to you and see what's worked for me and what might work for yourselves. But just get started with some of these little tips and techniques. Don't see it as sort of black magic and airy fairy crap that that it takes a special person to do. Yeah, I'm as normal as they could. Nothing wrong with me. You know what I mean? And Phil's the same. Lorne, although he looks like some kind of robot sent from outer space to rid the world of obesity, he's a normal guy. You know what I mean? Which means that as normal people, you can do this stuff too, and reap all the benefits. So, Phil, any last burners from you?
No. I suppose. Well, actually, yeah, I have. And it came up yesterday, and I thought it was a real sort of point. For those that are looking for weight loss, and they tie their weight loss in with happiness, I think the biggest weight loss you can do is lift that depression of beating yourself up. It might not show on the scales, but it'll certainly take you in another direction up there, and that'll follow through. So maybe the biggest weight isn't this one you see on the scales. It's the weight
on your shoulders
that you can just release.
Yeah, profound.
Yeah, just to wrap up there as well, I couldn't agree more with what Craig said. Then it's not possible to agree more with that. We and Craig did a podcast last August. It was just trying to get people to look at their mindset, and that's my biggest that's my biggest lesson I try to give to anyone that comes here. Your body will do whatever your mind tells it. This is why guys like Phil are so important, because really, if I'm honest, what I do is a bit of a sideshow. That's why everything here at Team is so important. It's so centered around making you think right, because once you can think right, everything else will take care of itself. You've got to work on that mindset. So I do hope you found that interesting, and we'll do a lot more of these.
Yeah,
focused.
Yeah, definitely. So just for a bit of a look forward, what's coming up in the next couple of weeks? Well, Phil's here for another couple of days. So if you want Raz, then stick it on. Stick it on there. Get a couple of hashtag Raz in there, and we'll do a bit on Raz. We'll find a bit of time to do that. What else is happening? Obviously, there'll be another webinar in a couple of weeks with Lorne and myself. We'll try and rustle up another special guest and see what we can do. Might try and get Paula in, or in fact, we can have a little bit of a vote actually. So if you want Paula to join us, then do little hashtag Paula. If you want a couple of the long-termers to join us, or even to hold their own webinar, then just do a little hashtag long-termers, and we'll take it from there. So until the next webinar, take care. All the best. Be better tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.